Do you want the microphone or are you going to shout?
Yeah. Hi, can you hear me in the back? Oh, look, that's like a hooker now.
Not much, though.
Not much, no. All right, Jonathan. Okay, I'm going to talk also a bit of set therapy about things I've seen doing a few years at PCI DSS. Why here? Because you may encounter it in your day jobs, and frankly, as I said, it's therapy for me. I'm going to kill off some misconceptions, get past some of the sales talk, and hopefully expose some of the bullshit. I found a quote, and the author is somewhere out in the room tonight. 3 phases of information security. Compliance, which is lovely and sweet, and where most of the action and the money lies. And it's very good because it keeps all the internal security folk busy, which makes them happy because they can generate large documentation trees, and that gives us happy audit teams. Yay. Based on ancient threats, not the current stuff that we see out there. And it's always a surprise to people when they've done all the good stuff and become compliant, they get breached, and it's quite shocking. And the next phase of information security is business enablement. And this is for any of you who are sharp-suited management consultants. As you'll know, business enablement keeps the board happy. They like it because they can say, this guy understands the business. Marvellous. You can enhance the company's reputation. You can gain sales. You can innovate new products and have new ways of working. And probably going to use the word paradigm here, but I promised myself I wouldn't. It sounds great, but it's mostly hot air. Doesn't pass investment analysis, and rarely continues after the first year. Real InfoSec, described as expensive, difficult, and disruptive, just like me. Comprised of current risks and threats, not the last year's audit actions. Requires you to speak up. For example, the SCADA systems that you see on the internet, still out there. Requires you, if you're doing your job, to prepare to go and pull the plug on insecure systems and send project managers back to the drawing board. I had an experience where I did this and stopped a large internet kiosk rolling out. You have to be prepared to be unpopular and potentially unemployable. Since you mentioned SCADA, and just a quick disclaimer, I won't visit you in prison. If you try this stuff, you might break something that somebody's plugged into. I found a couple of things from doing a quick search. Someone has decided it's a really good idea to put their process controller's SNMP on interface on the internet, where there's a read string of public, there's a write string of private. Somebody else has decided it's a really good idea to put their HVAC web control system on the internet. Look at the source code, find the things you need to do to manipulate the HVAC directly, enjoy yourself. Back to the PCI. A few facts. PCI DSS applies to you if you store, process or transmit cards. So you go in there and they say, but, we're a non-profit. But, we're too big, we're too small. My favourite one was this PCI thing, we are French, it is American standard, we do not believe in this. I was fortunate, I had a big Irish chap next to me, he said, well, I'm very sorry to hear that, but PCI believes in you. I quite like that. PCI is basic stuff, there is no rocket science in there. You don't patch, if you don't patch it, you don't control it. If you don't control it, it's not yours. Yeah, there's lots of other don'ts, which I'll come on to in a minute. Like I said, it's a therapy for me. PCI compliance is not security, and this is the latest sharp-suited phrase that people are taxing. It's damage limitation, but it's not damage limitation for you, it's damage limitation for your bank. If you get pwned, if, for example, the front page of your newspaper has something surprising about your proprietor one day, the idea is your bank then have to cancel the cards and reissue them. So, not going to help you stop being pwned. Do you look for News International? PCI has this concept of levels, and the higher level you are, the more you have to do, up to a point where you have to have somebody assessing you. More on that person in it later. There's also another little wrinkle. If the bank or one of their card brands decides that you are unreliable anyway, then they will put you up in a different level. So you're a level 1, as the saying goes, if the bank think you are as well. There's two flavours, merchants versus service providers. Merchants are the people we give our payment details to, like Amazon, Tesco and all the rest of it, and service providers are the people they outsource their payment processing to, and we hope they don't get it wrong. As I said, merchant levels mostly determined by sales volume, although if a merchant's being breached, they normally get promoted up to top level. Service providers are driven by volume and whether they want to be listed or not. So it's up to them if they want a bit of free advertising, or not quite so free, as you'll see. Higher levels get assessed by this wonderful animal called the QSA. The QSA has been on the PCI DSS training course and has sat their written exam and comes out feeling terribly good about themselves and ready to give their expertise for the greater good. So, what is this animal called the QSA and how do we deal with them? Well, there are, if you like, three main sorts. There's the reassuringly expensive. And I've captured a couple of behaviours which I thought I'd share with you now. I'll make you compliant, but I want to do a forensic analysis of all your servers. I kid you not. Not cheap. I'll make you compliant, but I want you to buy military standard shredders that grind everything into a fine powder. Not the cheap 300 quid ones from Staples, the really expensive ones. Okay. Here's a good one. I'll make you compliant, but I want you to buy my payment service as well. Okay. More on that one later. And here's the other type. Type 2. The quality security assessor. Email your firewall config. It'll be fine. Is there any problem with that? No. Fill in this online tool, because nobody ever lies on those, and we'll make you compliant. And here's another one. Buy my payment service provider. I'm sure I've seen that somewhere before. And there is, of course, a third type, which is just about right. And if you believe in those, then here's another imaginary animal for you. So, what does working PCI mean? You're working with retailers mostly, so your mum will have heard of your clients, which is quite nice. On the other side of it, these are very entrepreneurial people. They are pretty tough on their suppliers, and you will get the negotiation goes on throughout the engagement and throughout until, in some cases, after the engagement is finished, which can be fun. Another one that's good to explain is these retailers mostly understand physical theft quite well. It's always challenging when you're sitting down and explaining to them why they need to do all this securing of their payment systems and the PC in the corner with all this customer data, and what they're thinking about is a cupboard of really great drugs that are in the store in the pharmacy corner. So, if you've ever wondered why companies fail, here's some research which was published, which I've captured from my former employer, and I sort of whipped through it. Installing a firewall configuration. 66% of people fail their PCI compliance on that. You are allowed to say what the fuck at any point you like. Do not use vendor default passwords. Okay, we're warming up. Yeah, 62% of people still think that if your Cisco has a password with Cisco, that's a secret. Protecting stored data, so not letting card numbers just sit around in your database and float out to the world longer. 79% of people fail. Well, okay, maybe that's a bit different. Encrypting sensitive data flowing across public networks. I could have just written TLS there, but I thought I'd put the full thing in. 45% of people don't do that.
Actually, what the fuck?
I think most of these I went, huh? Or as my dog would go, oh. Developing and maintain secure systems and networks. Patching. 56% of people fail. There's other stuff like secure development life cycles, all the stuff we know is good and right, but it's patching.
Do you have any OS breakdown for that?
I kind of do, but not here. I'll come back to you. Hi, someone in the back.
Sorry, 56% of the
Pardon?
number. So the people that failed, or everyone that...
This was a survey done by a former employer of mine a few years back, and they're not in the room tonight. Oh yes, hello. This is a survey done by a former employer, and they said, let's have a look at why all of the various people we've assessed fail their assessments. So it's a study of around 200 organisations.
But this is of the people that failed, as
Yeah.
opposed to everything.
Of the people that why do people fail? Here's another, moving quickly on, another one that people failed on, unique IDs. So fraud 101, if two people share a username and password, one of them might do something bad with it. And again, finally, don't let people walk into your machine room, walk off with your backup tapes, take USB keys with your database on, and indeed stuff a handful of payment card slips in the back pocket and walk home. Tracking and monitoring access, which is mostly good logging. I've done a few breach investigations as well, and I've never ever in a breach seen good logs. Everyone says, oh yeah, the ISP's doing that, and the ISP keeps a week and then deletes them because it's taking up valuable disk space. Or they say, well, it's in the event log for the Windows guys, and the event log is set up to write a nice circular buffer that overwrites itself really, really quickly when you're under an attack. Regularly testing systems and processes. Pen testing. Pen testing is good. Scanning is good. People don't do it. And for the business enablement folks, it's a policy. Have an information security policy. On the good news side, most people install antivirus. Hurrah! So I wanted to move on to, again, I mentioned done some breach investigations, and I wanted to look at, if you like, what I've called the shitstorm tornado and its life cycle, and what happens when you're breached. So, day zero, you've been breached. If you're lucky, you've got some really diligent sysadmin guys who said, hey, something weird has happened, and have raised the red flag. If you're lucky. If you're less lucky, your bank has called up the CFO or somebody else important and said, we're seeing some really, really weird payment activity and you're the common point. If you're even less lucky than that, you've just become a rock star on Twitter. Day zero. By day 5, I take it some of you have dealt with procurement departments before. By day 5, you have to identify a forensic company. There is a small list of forensic companies you can deal with, and it's getting smaller, but nevertheless, there is a list of forensic companies that are approved by the card brands, and if you pick one of those, you'll be fine. But day 5, it's not a long time. Again, procurement guys, get them to do anything in 5 days. Get them to do something in 10 days, sign contracts with said forensic company that you decided you love and you're going to trust them with all your stuff. In 15 days, they'll have an investigator on site, hopefully. In 20 days, they'll produce a forensic report saying what happened, where it all went, whose fault it was, and so on. If those seem like really, really tough timescales, it's okay. There is a mechanism to help you. More fines are available for your pleasure. Quick question, the report that you've just paid for has everything. Your network infrastructure, your firewall config, your database schemas, anything that you might consider particularly sensitive, possibly even down to the way you background check your staff, or don't. And that's not yours anymore. It goes out of the door. You just pay for it. So, I'm going to wind up now. Like I said, I titled the talk Hack the QSA because if you encounter a QSA in your day jobs or even in a social situation, which is bizarre, I think there are some questions you might like to ask them. Question 1, have you ever worked in my sector before? Or am I going to have to teach you how travel works, how pharmacies work, how retail works, how my bank works? Question 2, how many assessments have you done? Am I your first? Is this going to be special? Hopefully it's not that special, because you don't again want somebody coming shock out with their shiny qualification trying out all their new ideas on you. Do you social engineer as part of your assessment process? Frankly, I hope so. Do you pen test? This is not a pen test. It's nice, but it's not a pen test. If they claim, as some do, to be a payment systems expert, there are a few things you should also ask them. Do they know what ISO 8583 is? Don't Google it, you'll fall asleep. It's the standard that card companies use to flick transactions across their networks. You can engage in a fruitful discussion about which comes first, the law or PCI. And a nice, serious one about that you should ask them, do they know your PCI person at the bank? Because chances are, if they're any good, you'll want them to talk to the people at your bank, and it helps that they know who they are. Well, that's the end of my talk. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you.
Absolutely. Do you have a similar opinion of the new QAE people?
I couldn't comment yet. I haven't seen enough of it.
You mentioned they install AV. Do they maintain it?
Well, if you're lucky, your AV company is realising that you're a very busy person, will, automatically update it for you. Without automatic updates, they tend to fall into disrepair. That's a no. Yeah.
Two back here, John.
At the bank.
You made about the report and the ownership. Where does that go?
The report goes to the credit card brand who detected your potential fraud. So the idea, they'll say, okay, there's some weird transactions. Where are all these cards last used? Right, they were last used for a valid transaction at that place. Therefore, that place is the common point of purchase and is the most likely point for fraud. And yeah, the forensic report for that place goes off to the card brand.
So they essentially subpoena your entire IT infrastructure architecture?
No, it's not the law.
I know, but
they ask you to do this. Contractually, if you don't do it, they fine you. If you don't pay it, they sue you.
Shit.
And then use the laptop with it all on.
No comment.
And what are the penalties for if you've done something bad in that report? What happens? Why at the bar, please?
It varies. The penalties vary because in Europe there's been sort of awareness that penalties kind of aren't working for non-compliance. The thing that hurts most organisations the most is not the cost of the forensic investigators, which aren't cheap. It's not the cost of fixing all the stuff, which again isn't cheap. What normally happens is your bank goes, oh, you've had a breach, and we don't trust you quite as much as we did, and we're going to up the settlement rate. So instead of the merchant settlement rate being 1.5%, it can go up to 7.5%, 15%, and whatever the bank thinks covers their risk. And that can get expensive. Oh.
OS breakdown. Can you give everybody a rough idea of the split between those who completely spectacularly failed to turn on auto updates for Windows versus everybody else?
No. Just because it's not one of the little factoids I stuffed in my head for
Can I
tonight.
ask you a question for you?
Because there's two sets of people. One who turn off auto updates because they know what they're doing and they don't want them to fuck up their box. And the other lot who have no clue and can't even manage to turn on auto updates even though the install procedure turns it on for you. I'm just curious.
You want to know whether they're stupid or ignorant?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd only be
Or
I'd only be hazarding a completely uninformed guess. I don't actually have any data on that. I mean, yeah, your guess is what's your view?
Do you have a split between between Windows and everything else? Just usage, not.
take it to the mail list.
Take it, yeah. Ping me on the mail list, and I'll dig out some data.
Tom?
How do we get the procurement to actually order the forensic services for the right servers in the first place?
It's a strange and difficult process. Procurement what normally happens in these cases is People find out they're breached, people go into a bit of a tailspin, they panic a bit, run around a bit, and normally they try and, again, just people being people, they try and exert control by being more like they normally are, and so procurement people will get even more shouty and insistent. What does tend to happen is that the first thing they go after, because being shouty and insistent usually means looking at driving down the cost, and so that, what happens, let's see if we can reduce scope.
That works.
Pardon?
That works, right?
Well, I have seen forensic companies do amazing things. In 5 days I saw a forensic company produce a report including disk imaging and all the other good stuff for 9 servers, which I was quite amazed at. And how they did that, I don't know. I don't think they
Cut and paste.
that would probably be a good guess, yeah. This is one of the things I think that is neat. This is one of the things that needs clearing up.
Walk away. Just tell them if they're not interested in being secure, walk away. They will phone you back.
Yeah.
It works. Sorry, I apologise for being rude, but done
You're already buying beer, but just up to 50.
That's nothing to do with my software.
I know, we're just being nasty.
No, you're so sweet. You're so sweet. No, just walk away. Just tell them you're not interested in security, so I can't actually help you. At which point, walk out. They will ring you before you get to your car and say, "Look, we're really sorry." And then you say, "No more negotiations."
I have actually done that. I had I'm not going to mention the client or the sector or anything like that. I had a CIO say to me, "I have promised the CEO that we will be compliant by March." Yeah, that's exactly what I said. Thank you for this concise comment.
I can name my client because went out of business. It was Woolworths. And they were great. Well, they know what you said. They said they had a little not breach, but they said we need this, and I said this is the price, and they said that's great. Can we reduce the scope? And I said no. Walked out. At which point they went. The facility rang me and they said you left. I said yes. You don't care. And they said no. Please come back. I said fine. What do you want me to do? They said no. What do we need to do? Good question. Purchase order.
In my case, what I found was the guy said, "We have to be compliant by March. What do we need to do? And we'll work all hours of the day." I said, "That's great. I'm only one person. Literally, I could charge by the pound, but that's a different story." And I said, "Only one person, and it's kind of it's mid-January now. You're not going to be able to do this." And he said, "You don't understand that I promised the CEO that we're going to do this." And I said, "Yeah, you don't understand. It's just not possible." And he said, "Right, okay, well, in which case then I don't want you as my consultant." That's absolutely fine, as you say. I'm sorry to feel that way. And there is the instrument of karma which you should watch out for. It's called LinkedIn. CIO is now looking for new and exciting opportunities. So I guess he didn't get complaint. Anyway, any other questions?
No. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Marvellous. So we will have a 20-odd minute break while our next speaker gets his interwebs working, hopefully.